Long before the sun rises over the eastern horizon, before the desert air begins to shimmer with heat, a man stirs on a woven reed mat inside a small mud brick house near the Nile. There is no alarm to wake him, no bell, no measured hour. His body knows when to rise because it has done so every day of his life, and because the rhythm of the river and the light governs everything he does. This man is not wealthy, nor powerful, nor remembered by name. He is a peasant farmer, one of millions who lived and died along the Nile Valley, and whose labor sustained ancient Egypt for thousands of years. To understand ancient Egypt, one must understand this man, not the pharaoh, not the priest, not the scribe, but the farmer whose hands broke the soil, scattered the seed, and harvested the grain that fed the nation. More than 90% of Egypt's population lived lives like his. The temples, the pyramids, the statues, and the painted tombs all depended on surplus food, and surplus food depended entirely on the work of peasants like him. Without them, the civilization that has fascinated the world for centuries would never have existed. The world this farmer inhabits is shaped almost entirely by geography. Egypt is a narrow ribbon of fertile land surrounded by vast deserts. To the east and west stretch arid plains of sand and rock, hostile to permanent settlement. To the south lie cataracts and rocky terrain, and to the north the Nile spreads into a broad delta before meeting the Mediterranean Sea. Life is possible here because of the Nile River, which floods its banks each year, depositing rich black silt onto the fields. This annual inundation transforms the valley into one of the most productive agricultural regions of the ancient world. Default text. The farmer lives during the New Kingdom period, around 1300 BCE, a time when Egypt is powerful, wealthy, and expansive. Pharaohs wage wars abroad, temples grow larger, and the state bureaucracy becomes more complex. But for the peasant farmer, daily life has changed very little from centuries before. His concerns are not foreign campaigns or royal building projects. His concerns are the flood, the harvest, the taxes, and the survival of his family. His house is modest and functional. It is built of sun-dried mud bricks, formed from Nile silt mixed with straw. These bricks are inexpensive and easy to make, but they erode quickly, meaning houses must be repaired often. The walls are thick, providing insulation against the intense heat of the day and the cooler temperatures at night. The roof is flat, made of wooden beams if available, covered with reeds and packed mud. In many homes, the roof serves as an extra living space, a place to sleep during hot nights or to dry food and materials. Inside, the house is dim. There are few windows, both to keep out heat and because glass is unknown. Light enters through the doorway and small openings near the roof. The interior space is limited, often consisting of a single main room and perhaps a smaller storage area. The floor is compacted earth, swept clean but never truly free of dust. Furniture is sparse. There are no tables in the modern sense. Low wooden stools may be present, though many families simply sit on the floor. Storage jars made of fired clay line the walls, holding grain, beer, water, and oil. Baskets woven from reeds store tools, vegetables, and personal items. Sleeping mats made from papyrus or reeds are rolled out at night and stacked during the day to free space. There is no private bathroom. Sanitation is basic and communal. Waste is disposed of outside the village or collected in pots and emptied regularly. Cleanliness is valued, but resources are limited. Flies and insects are constant companions, especially during warmer months. The farmer shares this house with his family. His wife sleeps beside him on the mat, and nearby lie their children, if they have survived infancy. Child mortality is high in ancient Egypt, and many families lose several children before one reaches adulthood. Those who survive become part of the household labor force at a young age.
As the farmer rises, he moves quietly so as not to disturb those still sleeping. The air inside the house is cool for now, but it will grow stifling later in the day. He steps outside, where the sky is beginning to lighten. The village around him is already stirring. Other men emerge from their homes, stretching and adjusting their simple clothing. Women begin preparing the morning meal, grinding grain or tending small cooking fires. The farmer's clothing is simple and practical. He wears a linen loincloth, wrapped around his waist and secured with a knot. Linen is the most common fabric in Egypt, made from flax plants grown along the Nile. The quality of linen varies greatly. The finest linen is soft and nearly transparent, worn by elites and priests. The farmer's linen is coarse, durable, and undecorated. In cooler months, he may wear a simple shawl or tunic, but most of the year his clothing is minimal. Footwear is rare among peasants. Sandals exist, made from leather or woven plant fibers, but they are reserved for special occasions or travel. Most of the time, the farmer works barefoot, his feet hardened by years of contact with soil, stones, and stubble. Before eating, the farmer may pause for a brief moment of reverence. Religion permeates every aspect of life in ancient Egypt. It is not confined to temples or formal rituals. It exists in gestures, words, and habits. The farmer might mutter a short prayer to Hapi, the god of the Nile's flood, or to a household deity believed to protect the family. There is no elaborate ceremony, only acknowledgement of forces beyond human control. Breakfast is simple and repetitive, much like every other meal. The farmer eats bread made from emmer wheat or barley. The bread is dense and coarse, often containing bits of grit from the grinding stones used to mill the grain. Over time, this grit wears down teeth, and dental problems are common among the peasantry. The bread may be dipped in water or in beer to soften it. Beer is consumed daily by people of all ages. It is thick, cloudy, and low in alcohol, more like a liquid bread than a modern beverage. Because clean drinking water is not always available, beer is often safer to consume. It provides calories and nutrients essential for a labor-intensive lifestyle. Once the small meal is finished, the farmer gathers his tools. These are few but essential. A wooden hoe, worn smooth from use. A sickle, its curved wooden handle set with sharp stone blades held in place by resin. A simple plow, if the household is fortunate enough to own or share one, pulled by oxen belonging to the village or a local landholder. The farmer steps onto the path leading to the fields. The sun has now risen above the horizon, casting long shadows across the land. The Nile glimmers in the distance, calm now, though its moods determine everything. The fields lie on land enriched by the most recent flood, dark and fertile, ready for planting or tending depending on the season. Egyptian agriculture follows a strict calendar defined by the Nile. The year is divided into 3 seasons. Akhit is the season of inundation, when the river floods and the fields disappear beneath water. During this time, farmers cannot work the land and are often conscripted for state labor projects, such as building temples, digging canals, or transporting stone. Perit is the growing season, when the waters recede and crops are planted and tended. Shemu is the harvest season, when grain is cut, gathered, and stored. On this particular day, it is Perit. The farmer walks to his plot, which may not technically belong to him. Most land in ancient Egypt is owned by the state, temples, or elite officials. Peasants work the land in exchange for a portion of the harvest, but they are also subject to taxes. These taxes are collected in grain and carefully recorded by scribes. Failure to meet expected yields can result in punishment. As the farmer reaches the field, he begins his labor. The soil is turned with the plow, guided carefully to avoid damaging the young shoots already emerging. If oxen are used, they move slowly, urged on by soft calls and the occasional tap. Where plows cannot reach, the farmer uses his hoe, bending repeatedly, his back and shoulders straining with each motion. The work is relentless. The sun climbs higher and the coolness of morning fades. Sweat darkens the linen around his waist. There is little shade and rest is brief. He drinks from a clay jar, the water warm but refreshing. Occasionally, he takes a mouthful of beer for energy. Birds descend on the fields, seeking seeds and insects. Children are tasked with scaring them away, shouting and waving sticks. Even the youngest contribute what they can. Childhood in ancient Egypt is short. By the age of 5 or 6, children are expected to help with household tasks. The farmer is aware that his labor is watched. Scribes may appear at any time to inspect the fields. These men, educated and literate, represent the authority of the state or the temple. They carry palettes and reed pens, and they record everything. The farmer cannot read what they write, but he understands its importance. Numbers on papyrus determine his future. If the harvest is poor, the reasons matter little to the tax collector. The state expects its share regardless of circumstances. Drought, pests, illness, or flood failure do not excuse shortfalls. Punishments can include beatings, confiscation of property, or forced labor. This knowledge hangs over every action in the field. As the hours pass, the farmer's movements become slower. His muscles ache, but he continues. There is no alternative. Survival depends on endurance. The land must be tended, the crops protected, the work completed before the season changes. By midday, the heat is intense. The farmer seeks what little shade he can find, perhaps under a tree at the edge of the field or beside a mud wall. He eats a small portion of bread, maybe an onion or a handful of beans. This is not a time of leisure. The break is brief, taken only to prevent collapse. The afternoon brings more labor. The cycle continues, hour after hour, day after day. This rhythm defines the farmer's existence. There is comfort in its familiarity, but also exhaustion. As the sun begins its descent, casting the land in golden light, the farmer finally gathers his tools. The work for this day is done, though tomorrow will be much the same. He walks back toward the village, his body heavy, his steps slow. Smoke rises from cooking fires as evening approaches. The sounds of voices and children fill the air. The farmer returns to his home, greeted by his family. His wife has spent the day grinding grain, baking bread, fetching water, and caring for the children. Her labor is no less demanding than his, though it takes place largely within the village. The evening meal is modest. Bread, vegetables, perhaps a small portion of fish if it has been caught. The family eats together, seated on the floor, sharing from common bowls. Conversation is simple. There is little energy for reflection or debate. As darkness falls, oil lamps are lit, their flames flickering. Stories may be told, often familiar tales passed down through generations. Myths of gods and heroes blend with local gossip and practical concerns. Laughter is rare but precious. Eventually, the lamps are extinguished to conserve oil. The family settles onto their mats. Outside, the sounds of the village fade. The farmer's body relaxes, exhaustion pulling him into sleep. Tomorrow, before dawn, he will rise again. This is one day in the life of an ancient Egyptian peasant farmer. It is unremarkable, repetitive, and physically demanding. It is also the foundation upon which one of the greatest civilizations in human history was built. As the farmer sleeps, his rest is shallow. The mat beneath him is thin, and the hard-packed earth offers little comfort. Insects buzz in the darkness, and sometimes rodents scurry along the edges of the room. Still, exhaustion ensures that sleep comes quickly. Dreams, when they arrive, are shaped by the same concerns that dominate waking life: the river, the fields, the weather, and the family. The future is uncertain, but the routine of tomorrow is not. When morning returns, it brings the same tasks and the same quiet anxieties. Over the course of a lifetime, these days blur together. Yet within this repetition exists a complex web of social relationships, obligations, and unspoken rules that shape village life. The village itself is small, perhaps only a few dozen households clustered together near arable land. It is not planned in the modern sense. Houses are built where space allows, paths winding between them in irregular patterns. At the center of the village may be a communal area where grain is stored or where elders meet to resolve disputes. There is no formal marketplace every day, but barter and exchange occur constantly. The farmer's neighbors are not strangers. They are relatives, in-laws, childhood companions. Marriages within nearby villages are common, strengthening ties between communities. Everyone knows who owns which tools, who owes favors, and who has fallen on hard times. Reputation matters deeply. A person known to shirk work or fail obligations risks social isolation, which can be as dangerous as hunger. Women play a central role in this world. While men are often responsible for plowing and heavy field work, women handle much of the food production that sustains the household. Grain must be processed daily. Using stone querns, women grind kernels into flour, a physically demanding task that consumes hours. The repetitive motion strains muscles and joints, and over time leaves distinctive wear patterns on bones, which modern archaeologists can still identify. Bread baking follows grinding. Dough is shaped by hand and baked in simple clay ovens or directly on heated stones. The quality of bread varies, but it is always essential. Without bread, there is no meal. Beer brewing is also largely the responsibility of women. Grain is partially baked, crumbled, mixed with water, and left to ferment. The resulting liquid is thick and nourishing, consumed fresh before it spoils. Women also fetch water, often walking considerable distances to wells or the river. Water jars are heavy, balanced on shoulders or hips. These daily journeys are opportunities for social interaction, gossip, and shared labor. Children accompany their mothers, learning tasks through observation long before formal instruction. Gender roles are clearly defined, but they are not rigidly hierarchical in daily life. While men hold formal authority in legal and administrative matters, women manage households, control food distribution, and participate in local economies. A competent household manager is respected, and survival often depends as much on her skill as on the farmer's labor in the fields. Children grow quickly into their roles. Play exists, but it is interwoven with work. Boys learn to handle animals, tools, and crops. Girls learn domestic tasks. Education in reading and writing is reserved almost entirely for the elite. A peasant child is unlikely to ever see papyrus, let alone learn to read it. Knowledge is transmitted orally and practically, passed from parent to child through demonstration and repetition. As the agricultural season progresses, anxiety increases. The success of the harvest determines everything. If the Nile's flood was insufficient, crops may be stunted. If it was excessive, fields may have been damaged. Pests can destroy yields, and disease can weaken workers at critical moments. The farmer is acutely aware that he has little control over these forces. Religion offers explanations and a sense of order. The farmer believes the gods maintain balance in the world, a concept known as Mot. When things go wrong, it is often interpreted as a disruption of this balance. Rituals, offerings, and prayers aim to restore harmony. These practices are not philosophical abstractions. They are practical responses to uncertainty. Small offerings are made at household shrines, perhaps a piece of bread or a cup of beer placed before a simple image or symbol. Major religious festivals bring color and excitement to village life. During these times, temples distribute food and beer, and normal labor may pause. Music, dancing, and processions provide rare relief from routine. Despite moments of joy, life remains precarious. Health risks are constant. The farmer's body bears the marks of hard labor, calloused hands, scarred skin, worn joints. Injuries sustained in the fields can become serious without proper treatment. A cut can become infected. A broken bone can mean permanent disability or death. Medical knowledge exists, blending practical remedies with magical beliefs. Herbal treatments are used for pain and illness, but they are accompanied by spells and incantations. Disease is often attributed to malevolent spirits or divine displeasure. Healing requires both physical and spiritual intervention. Dental problems are widespread. The grit in bread wears teeth down to stubs, exposing nerves and causing chronic pain. Abscesses are common and can be fatal. There is little relief beyond endurance. Women face additional risks, particularly during childbirth. Many do not survive labor, and many infants die within days or weeks. These losses are frequent enough to be expected, yet no less painful. Families mourn quietly, then continue, because life leaves little time for prolonged grief. Death is a constant presence, but it is not feared in the same way it is in some modern societies. The afterlife is a continuation of existence, ideally one of comfort and abundance. Even peasants hope for a favorable judgment after death. While they cannot afford elaborate tombs, they participate in funerary rituals as best they can. Simple graves, modest offerings, and prayers are believed to sustain the deceased in the next world. As harvest season arrives, the pace of work intensifies. Grain must be cut quickly before it spoils or is lost. Entire families work together, cutting stalks with sickles, gathering bundles, and transporting them to thrashing floors. Animals are driven over the grain to separate kernels from chaff. The air fills with dust, and the labor is exhausting. Scribes are especially present during harvest. They count, measure, and record yields with meticulous care. The farmer watches nervously as numbers are written down. This is the moment when his year's labor is transformed into obligation. Taxes are assessed, grain is allocated, and what remains determines whether his family will eat well or barely survive. When the harvest is complete, some relief follows. Storage jars are filled, and immediate hunger is eased. But grain must last until the next harvest, and miscalculation can be disastrous. The farmer's wife carefully manages supplies, rationing portions to stretch through lean months. During the inundation season, when fields are underwater, the farmer's labor does not end. Instead, it changes. The state often requires peasants to work on public projects. These might include repairing canals, building dikes, transporting stone, or constructing temples and tombs. While these projects serve the state, they also reinforce social order and provide food rations to workers. Participation in state labor is mandatory. Refusal is not an option. However, this work also fosters a sense of collective identity. Villagers work alongside people from neighboring regions, sharing hardships and stories. For a brief time, the farmer sees more of the world beyond his fields. Despite the hardships, there is pride in labor. The farmer knows his work matters. The success of Egypt depends on agriculture, and agriculture depends on him. This knowledge does not erase suffering, but it gives meaning to effort. As years pass, the farmer ages. His strength diminishes, and younger family members take on more responsibility. He becomes an advisor rather than the primary laborer, passing down knowledge earned through decades of experience. Eventually, illness or injury ends his life, as it has for countless generations before him. He will not be remembered by name. There will be no statue, no inscription. But his existence is written into the soil itself, into the layers of silt deposited by the Nile, into the grain that fed cities and armies. Ancient Egypt endures in monuments and texts, but its true foundation lies in lives like his, ordinary, repetitive, and resilient. Beyond the visible rhythms of planting and harvest lies a system of control that shapes the farmer's life just as powerfully as the Nile itself. This system is taxation. For the peasant farmer, taxes are not paid in coin, because money in the modern sense does not yet exist. Taxes are paid in grain, labor, and obedience. They are unavoidable, relentless, and deeply feared. The farmer does not own the land he works. In theory, all land belongs to the pharaoh, who rules as both king and divine intermediary. In practice, large portions are administered by temples, nobles, and officials, but ultimate authority traces back to the crown. The farmer is permitted to cultivate a plot in exchange for a share of the yield. This arrangement is accepted as the natural order of things. It has always been this way, and no alternative is imaginable. Taxation begins long before harvest. Scribes survey fields, assess soil quality, and estimate potential yield. These estimates are recorded, and expectations are set. When harvest arrives, actual yields are measured against predictions. Shortfalls are rarely excused. A poor flood may be acknowledged, but it does not absolve obligation. The state's needs take precedence over individual hardship. The presence of scribes inspires anxiety. They arrive with officials and guards, symbols of authority made tangible. They carry pallets, papyrus scrolls, and measuring tools. They are educated men, trained in writing and mathematics, skills inaccessible to peasants. Their records are final. The farmer cannot challenge what is written because he cannot read it. Punishment for failure is swift and physical. Beatings are common and socially accepted as enforcement tools. In some cases, property may be confiscated, livestock seized, or family members conscripted into labor. Imprisonment exists but is less common than corporal punishment. Fear is an integral part of governance. Yet the farmer does not view this system as unjust in a modern sense. It is harsh, but it is also normal. Authority is woven into the fabric of the world, just like the river and the seasons. Resistance is rare and dangerous. Survival depends on compliance. Law in ancient Egypt is less about codified statutes and more about maintaining order. The concept of Mot, representing balance, truth, and harmony, underpins the legal system. Crime is understood as disruption of this balance. For peasants, legal matters are typically handled locally. Village elders, officials, or temple representatives resolve disputes over land boundaries, theft, or personal conflict. Serious crimes, such as assault, desertion from labor duty, or tax evasion, attract harsher penalties. These cases are referred to higher authorities. The farmer understands that the law exists to protect order, not individuals. Justice is not impartial in the modern sense. It favors the powerful and preserves hierarchy. Despite this, village life relies heavily on cooperation. Mutual aid is essential. During illness or injury, neighbors help tend fields. During famine, food may be shared, though resources are limited. Social bonds act as a buffer against total collapse. Famine is the farmer's greatest fear. A single failed flood can lead to hunger, but successive failures bring catastrophe. Grain stores dwindle, prices rise, and desperation spreads. In such times, the state may open granaries, distributing food to prevent unrest. Temples also play a role, offering aid in exchange for loyalty and labor. Famine leaves deep psychological scars. Parents watch children weaken. Elders waste away. Theft increases as survival overrides social norms. Stories of famine are passed down through generations, shaping collective memory and behavior. Even in years of abundance, the farmer is cautious, aware that prosperity is temporary. The farmer's view of the pharaoh is complex. The pharaoh is distant, unseen, and powerful. He is spoken of with reverence, depicted in temples and reliefs as strong, victorious, and divinely favored. The farmer believes the pharaoh maintains Mot by pleasing the gods and ensuring the Nile floods properly. When floods fail, some blame falls on the ruler, though such thoughts are rarely voiced openly. To the farmer, the pharaoh is both protector and burden. Taxes are demanded in his name, labor is conscripted for his monuments, and punishment is delivered by his officials. Yet the pharaoh is also believed to guarantee cosmic order. Without him, chaos would follow. This duality is accepted rather than questioned. Elites and officials are closer and more tangible than the pharaoh. The farmer may interact with local administrators, overseers, or temple staff. These individuals wield power directly over his life. Some are harsh, others fair, but all represent a system that prioritizes extraction of resources. Favor with an official can mean leniency, disfavor can mean ruin. Emotionally, the farmer's life is not devoid of feeling, but it is restrained. Expressive displays of grief, anger, or joy are moderated by necessity. Excessive emotion wastes energy and invites attention. Endurance is valued. Stoicism is not a philosophy but a survival strategy. Family is the emotional core of the farmer's world. Bonds between parents and children are strong, even in the face of high mortality. Each surviving child represents hope and continuity. Marriage is practical, often arranged, but affection develops through shared hardship. Companionship grows from mutual dependence. There is laughter in village life, though it is fleeting. Jokes are told during communal work, songs sung during festivals, and stories shared at night. Humor provides release from monotony and stress. These moments, brief as they are, sustain morale. Time is perceived differently than in the modern world. The farmer does not think in terms of years or decades, but in seasons and cycles. Life is repetitive, predictable, and bounded. Ambition is limited to survival and modest improvement, perhaps acquiring an extra tool or ensuring a child lives longer than the last. Old age is both respected and feared. Elders carry knowledge, but they are also burdens if they cannot work. Families support them as long as possible, but resources are finite. Death, when it comes, is accepted with resignation. It is part of the natural order, governed by the same forces that shape life. As night falls again, the farmer lies on his mat, his body aching, his mind drifting. Tomorrow will be much like today. The repetition is endless, but within it lies stability. Change is rare and often unwelcome. The farmer does not dream of transformation. He dreams of continuity. This quiet persistence is the true strength of ancient Egypt. Not conquest or monuments, but endurance. Generation after generation of farmers rise before dawn, work the land, feed the state, and pass on knowledge. Their lives leave little trace in stone or text, but they are etched into history all the same. Religion surrounds the farmer from the moment he wakes until he falls asleep again. It is not something separate from life, nor something debated or questioned. It simply is. The gods are present in the river, the sun, the wind, illness, fertility, and death. To live is to exist within a divine system that must be respected, navigated, and appeased. The farmer does not regularly enter grand temples. These spaces, massive and richly decorated, are primarily the domain of priests and officials. From the outside, the farmer may glimpse towering columns and reliefs carved with images of gods and kings, but inside rituals are hidden from common view. The gods are distant yet powerful, and direct access to them is mediated by the priesthood. Instead, religion for the farmer is domestic and local. Small household shrines may be found in a corner of the home, perhaps nothing more than a niche in the wall or a simple clay figure. These shrines honor protective deities, ancestors, or local spirits. Offerings are modest: a piece of bread, a cup of beer, a pinch of grain. What matters is intent, not scale. Magic is inseparable from religion. There is no clear boundary between prayer, medicine, and spell work. Amulets are worn for protection against disease, accidents, and evil spirits. Common symbols include the Eye of Horus, representing healing and protection, and small figurines meant to ward off harm. These objects are not decorative. They are believed to have real power. The farmer attributes many misfortunes to supernatural causes. Illness may be the result of malevolent spirits or divine displeasure. A snake bite, a fever, or sudden pain is not merely physical but spiritual. Treatment involves both practical remedies and incantations. A healer may recite spells while applying herbs or poultices. Success depends as much on divine favor as on the remedy itself. Dreams are considered meaningful. A disturbing dream may be interpreted as a warning from the gods. The farmer may seek advice from a local wise person or priest, though access to formal dream interpretation texts is limited to literate elites. Still, Dreams influence decisions, reinforcing the sense that unseen forces shape daily life. Festivals punctuate the agricultural calendar, providing moments of joy and relief. These events are tied to religious observances and seasonal changes. During major festivals, statues of gods may be carried in procession, accompanied by music, dancing, and chanting. Beer flows more freely, and food distributions are common. For a brief time, hierarchy softens and communal celebration replaces labor. These festivals are emotionally important. They reaffirm the farmer's place within a cosmic order and remind him that endurance is recognized by the gods. The monotony of daily labor is broken, and the community comes together. Such moments are remembered long after they pass. Death, though ever present, is approached with acceptance rather than terror. The farmer has seen death often, siblings lost in childhood, neighbors claimed by illness, elders fading away. Mortality is expected. What matters is not avoiding death, but ensuring a favorable outcome afterward. The afterlife is central to Egyptian belief. Life does not end at death, it transforms. The farmer believes that after death, he will be judged by Osiris, ruler of the underworld. His heart will be weighed against the feather of Mot. If his life has been just, he will be granted entry into the field of reeds, an idealized version of earthly life where work is easy and abundance is endless. This vision of the afterlife is deeply appealing to a man whose earthly existence is defined by hardship. The field of reeds promises familiar labor without suffering, a continuation rather than an escape. It is a comforting image, rooted in the farmer's lived experience. Funerary practices for peasants are modest. There are no elaborate tombs or mummification processes like those of elites. The body may be wrapped simply in linen and buried in a shallow grave at the edge of the desert. Grave goods are minimal, perhaps a pot of food, a tool, or an amulet. Prayers are spoken, and family members mourn briefly before returning to their responsibilities. Despite simplicity, these rituals matter. They ensure the deceased is remembered and provided for in the next world. Memory itself is a form of immortality. As long as the living speak the name of the dead, they continue to exist. Over time, the farmer internalizes these beliefs. They shape his behavior, encouraging conformity, patience, and moral conduct. Fear of divine judgment reinforces social norms. Religion thus supports the social order, aligning individual survival with collective stability. As seasons pass and years accumulate, the farmer's life follows a predictable arc. Childhood labor gives way to adult responsibility. Strength peaks, then declines. Knowledge accumulates even as physical ability wanes. Eventually, the farmer becomes an elder, offering advice and guidance, his authority derived from experience rather than formal power. In his later years, he may reflect on his life, though reflection is not a luxury often afforded. He measures success not in wealth or achievement, but in continuity. Did his children survive? Did his family endure? Did he fulfill his obligations to the gods and the land? When death finally comes, it is neither dramatic nor unexpected. It arrives as a culmination of wear, illness, or injury. The community responds with practiced familiarity. Life continues because it must. The Nile will flood again. Fields will be planted again. Children will take the place of elders. The cycle is unbroken. As the year turns, the farmer becomes increasingly attentive to the signs of change in the river. The Nile is not merely a feature of the landscape, it is the pulse of existence itself. Its rise and fall dictate not only when work is done, but whether life will be sustained at all. When the waters begin to swell, creeping outward from the riverbanks, the farmer watches carefully. He has learned, through years of experience and inherited knowledge, to read the river's behavior. The speed of its rise, the color of the water, the debris it carries, all are omens of what the coming months will bring. When the inundation arrives, fields disappear beneath water. The rich black silt spreads across the land, renewing the soil but halting agricultural work. This season, Akhit, is both hopeful and unsettling. A good flood promises abundance later, a weak one foreshadows hunger. During these months, the farmer cannot tend crops. Instead, his labor is redirected. State officials arrive to organize labor crews. The farmer is assigned work based on need and availability. He may be sent to repair canals that guide floodwaters into fields, ensuring even distribution. He may help reinforce dikes, preventing villages from being swept away. In some years, he is sent farther afield, working on monumental projects that glorify the gods and the pharaoh. These labor periods are exhausting but structured. Workers receive rations of bread and beer, ensuring survival during service. Living conditions are harsh, with crowded shelters and limited rest. Yet there is also a strange sense of equality. Peasants from many villages work side by side, sharing stories, complaints, and moments of camaraderie. For the farmer, this may be the only time he travels beyond his immediate region. As the waters recede, Parrot begins again. The land reemerges, glistening with fresh silt. The farmer returns to his fields, guiding plows through softened earth. Seeds are sown with care, each handful representing hope and risk. This is a time of cautious optimism. The flood has passed, and now human effort determines success. Days blur into one another as the growing season progresses. Weeding, irrigating, protecting crops from animals and pests, all require constant attention. The farmer's body adapts to the rhythm, muscles responding almost automatically. Pain becomes background noise, acknowledged but rarely dwelled upon. As Shemu approaches, anticipation grows. The crops mature, grain heads heavy and golden. Harvest is near. This is the most demanding period when timing is critical. Too early and yields suffer. Too late and grain is lost to weather or animals. Entire households mobilize, cutting and gathering with urgency. After harvest, relief mixes with exhaustion. The year's success is measured and recorded. Taxes are paid, stores assessed. For a moment, the farmer can breathe easier, knowing his family will eat. Yet the relief is temporary. Grain must be preserved, guarded against spoilage and theft. Planning begins anew for the next cycle. Years pass in this way, each marked by the same sequence of anticipation, labor, anxiety, and endurance. The farmer ages, his body slowing, his hands stiffening. Younger family members take on more work, guided by his instruction. He watches them with a mixture of pride and concern, knowing the hardships they will face. Memory becomes his legacy. He teaches his children how to read the river, when to plant, how to survive lean times. These lessons are not written but lived. They are repeated through action and example. In this way, knowledge endures even without text. Eventually, the farmer's role shifts entirely. He is no longer the one who rises first to work the fields. Instead, he advises, observes, and remembers. His authority is quiet, rooted in experience rather than command. The village respects him, but it does not pause for him. Life moves on. When he dies, his passing is noted briefly, then absorbed into the continuity of the community. Another grave is dug, another life folded into the earth. The fields remain. The Nile continues its cycle. The world does not change. And yet, everything that endures does so because of lives like his. The temples stand because farmers fed the workers who built them. The armies marched because farmers supplied grain. The gods were honored because farmers produced offerings. The written history of Egypt speaks of kings and conquests, but beneath every inscription lies the labor of countless unnamed individuals. This farmer's life, repetitive and constrained, is not insignificant. It is foundational. Civilization is not built by moments of glory alone, but by sustained effort across generations. The true story of ancient Egypt is not only carved in stone, it is written in soil, sweat, and survival. In following one ordinary day, repeated thousands of times over a lifetime, we glimpse the quiet endurance that allowed a civilization to last for millennia. The farmer does not know he is part of history. He knows only that tomorrow, before sunrise, he will rise again. And that is enough.